Welcome to the second hour of the Elias Macco Show. We begin with the leader of the Quebec Conservative Party, Éric Duhaime, who joins us. Good morning, Mr. Duhaime. Éric, welcome back to the program.
Always a pleasure, Elias.
So we have a whole lot to get to, but first things first, I want to tackle this press release that your party sent out yesterday. Here's the headline. The Conservatives accuse the Liberals of being two-faced on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it's a press release sent out by you and two of your candidates in the last election, from Darcy McGee riding and Robert Baldwin. So Bonnie Feigenbaum, who comes on the Big Five on this show from time to time, and Axel Lelouch. Tell me about your statement. Why are you accusing the Liberals of being two-faced?
Well, because I went, less than 2 weeks ago to the demonstration with a lot of people from the Israeli community in Montreal and many Quebecers in favor of the freedom of the hostages in Gaza. And, the Liberals were there. The MNA for Darcy McGee was there. She even delivered a speech saying that, there was no peace without first and foremost that they free the hostages. And then a few days later, last week, the Liberals were supporting a motion of Quebec Solidaire calling for a ceasefire. Well, you can't without mentioning the hostages. And for us, it's two-faced. You can't on one side say that we need to free the hostages first and foremost, and on the other hand, say that you're calling for a ceasefire without even mentioning the hostages. You're either with the hostages or not. And I found that very shocking. I understand that it's a party without a leader for in the next 2 years, that the MPs are the MNAs are loose cannons right now, but there's limits. Who speaks on behalf of the Liberals? Is it when they're supporting Quebec Solidaire's motion in the National Assembly, or is it the MNA for Darcy McGee when she's delivering a speech downtown Montreal?
The government, the CAQ, they voted against the motion, saying that Israel has the right to defend itself.
Thank God.
Obviously, you don't have a seat in the National Assembly, but what's your stance? What's your stance on that conflict? And if you were in the National Assembly, what would you be saying?
Well, I would have tabled a motion saying that there's no discussion about ceasefire if there's not first and foremost the freedom of the hostages. It's the bottom line. That's the first thing they need to do. I mean, I've lived in the Middle East for a little while. I went to Iraq during the war. I've seen a lot of things, but what we saw on October 7th is at another level. And there's over 300 people right now that are hostages. It's hell for them, for their relatives, friends. Something needs to be done for those people. And it seems that when they're tabling a motion like that, I find it very offensive and one-sided. And we should never forget who was the first one to aggress, who are the terrorists in that conflict, who stands with democracy. I mean, there's basic principles that all Quebecers should remember right now. And I'm happy to see that in the streets of Montreal and everywhere in Quebec, there's people who are having opinions on that and who are talking about the freedom on one side and the hostages on the other side. But what I don't like right now is that we've never seen that before. People rallying in the streets of Montreal and some screaming slogans in favor of a terrorist organization. Having an imam that is having almost a hate speech. I think we can say that. Mm-hmm. It's very concerning. And I think that politicians at the National Assembly need to show the way and make sure that we all agree that our hearts are first and foremost with the hostages right now.
So how do we do that, Éric? Because it's very clear that things are getting out of hand, and the temperature is rising. And it's not just here; we're seeing it across Canada, we're seeing it across the world, and we need to find a way back. Okay, so how do we do that? What should be the leadership? And by the way, we had the cantor of the synagogue in Dollar des Ormeaux where they were firebombed. And he actually, in the interview, said, haven't really seen it from the federal government or the municipal government, but he gave François Legault credit for how he's handled this. So what should we be doing? What should leaders, politicians be doing to ramp things down?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is that on Saturday, it's already organized. I'll be at that synagogue. I think it's important to show support, to denounce all kind of attempt of violence, of racism, of anti-Semitism. I think it's very important right now for our political class to show leadership and where we stand. That's the first thing we need to do. It's a symbolic thing. Obviously, it's not going to change the end of the world. It's not the end of the world that François Legault calls the people in the Jewish community, or that I go to a synagogue. But at least it shows that, we're with those people and we feel their pain right now. I think that's the first step we need to do. The second one is that I think that there needs to be some legal consequences. If there are people in the streets of Montreal who are calling for the extermination of Zionists or the aggressor. I don't know how he called them, but anyway, we all understood what he meant.
Basically, he said everything to avoid saying the word Jews, to skirt hate speech laws, I would imagine, but he said everything but up until that.
Well, I think that there needs, it's the justice system that needs to take care of that. We already have laws in Canada against hate speech, and I think that we should test it. If somebody on the right has said things very similar to what Adil Sharkawi said last week, I can tell you that the police would already have visited him or her. There shouldn't be a double standard on those things. It's totally unacceptable what he said, and it's not the first time. I mean, the guy has been suspected, as you know, of being part of Al Qaeda. He wear an electronic bracelet for a long period of time. He was freed because they couldn't table the proof they had against them for national security reasons. So we all have to remember that the guy has a track record as well, and we shouldn't take that as a joke. It's very, very concerning, and you wouldn't have seen that in the streets of Montreal a few decades ago. People going like that in the streets, having those kind of speeches, and support, and some supporters who were there who were screaming slogans of Hamas. It's really, really, really concerning, and everybody should stand up saying we're concerned. How come people come here to Canada? Because they want more democracy, more civic rights, more individual freedoms, and they end up in the streets screaming in favor of terrorists. Like, where did we fumble the ball? Like, there's a huge problem, obviously, and we see it. You're right, not just in Quebec, we see it in Canada as well, and in the Western world right now. But those people come here because they supposedly want more democracy, more civic rights, and more individual freedom, and they end up getting activated against it. And it's really, really concerning, and we need to have a comprehensive perspective on that one.
Can I get your take on what happened at Concordia University yesterday?
Well, I just know I saw the videos. It's really, really concerning. The answer, the security, what we saw in the videos, we always have to be cautious because I don't know if there's other things that happen. But we don't feel that the people that were there were properly protected. What are the measures that the university is going to take from now on? I spoke to some Jewish people attending Concordia today that were nervous. They shouldn't be. We're in Quebec. We're in a free country, and your religion shouldn't be a concern, and you shouldn't be scared because you're of certain religion. It's a huge problem. I hope that those who did that are also going to be sanctioned. There needs to be a tough approach with that. It's unacceptable, and it shouldn't be tolerated in any way, form, or shape. And all those people should have consequences for what they did yesterday.
All right, continuing our conversation with Éric Duhaime. He's the leader of the Quebec Conservative Party. Éric, thanks for sticking around. Let's talk about this, and I don't know what our listeners are going to think about this one, because when we hear about a Quebec values test, we have flashbacks to previous governments and previous decades. So now this is something coming from one of the members of your party, Karim El Ayoubi. He's a doctor, and I think he's the head of your political committee in your party.
That's correct.
So he's talking about a Quebec values test. Tell us more. Why?
It's a psychometric test because, when we see people like Adil Sharkawi or the people that are screaming slogans in favor of Hamas in the streets of Montreal these days, we wonder how come, we welcome those people like that if they don't share our values at all. And it's not normal that, those people were able to to pass the test and to get in. As you know, it's not the Quebec wouldn't be the first place to have a test. The federal government has a test when you want to become a Canadian citizen. It's very common in almost every country. The thing is that, you cannot ask them, do you agree with a secular state, or you think that the Quran is above the law? Because they're obviously going to say, no, we agree with a secular state. They know how to answer those questions. Do you think that gays should be in jail, or it's totally acceptable? That kind of questions, it will be easy for them to escape. But there's psychometric tests that are a little bit more, how could I say,
they're more subtle. They're more subtle in the questioning.
Exactly, and there's a way to detect that, because and the problem is, Elias, the reason why that happens also is because we focused a lot on the French tests in Quebec. As you know, it was and it's still very important for immigrants to learn French, and we want to welcome as many francophones as possible. But it's not because they speak French that they have at least a common base in common ground in terms of values. And it's a huge problem right now. It's probably much easier to integrate people who do not speak French, but who are willing to learn French, than people who come here who speak better French than the majority of Quebecers, but do not share any of our values. And this is why we think it's important to not focus just on the language barrier, because there are other issues. And he might speak French better than me, Adil Sharkawi, but he doesn't speak my language, and he certainly doesn't share my values. And I certainly don't think that it's a bonus and it's an addition to have him on our territory. And that's the kind of thing that we have to make sure that doesn't happen again. There's obviously a problem. It's not normal that those people get in like that. We need to make sure that we know that they share a common ground in terms of values with the majority of Quebecers.
So here's the issue that comes to my mind right away when I hear you talk about that. Who gets to decide the values? Imagine, let's say Quebec Solidaire won an election, and they were to have a psychometric test, and what they're trying to do is weed out people that like capitalism. You know what I mean? So that's where I go, I don't know about this.
It's a slippery slope. You're absolutely right on that one. It has to be things that are very, very common. I think the fact that we have a secular state in Quebec, there's not many people who are contesting that. Actually, I've never met one. The fact that, we have human rights, that because I'm gay, I shouldn't be discriminated against. I think that's also accepted by a very, very strong majority, if not almost unanimity. The same thing with women and men. If you think that women are inferior to men, well, maybe you're not choosing the right country. People who are coming to Quebec, who are coming to Canada, who are coming to America, are coming here because they want to have more freedom, more civic rights, and more democracy, not less.
Monsieur Duhaime, Éric, some people would say this is just a roundabout way of trying to keep people from certain countries coming to Quebec. And that's tantamount to racism. What do you say to that?
It's a very, very good question that you're asking. And it's specifically because we don't want to be racist that we're putting those tests. As you said, the guy who's proposing that is the head of our political committee, the Dr. Karim Elayoubi. His father is an Arab Muslim from Lebanon. If we were discriminating based on religion or countries, Karim wouldn't even exist, because his father married a Quebec woman, a French Quebec woman, and today he's totally integrated in our society. But his father shares our values, and that guy would have been allowed in. So we don't want to pass those tests to make sure to specifically that we're not discriminating and we're not racist, and we don't judge people because of their religion or because of the country they're from, but because of their values.
How do you convince Quebecers? Because, if you were to try and implement it right away, it would be, that's racist, that's racism. So how do you have a conversation with Quebecers where you can get around the name calling and express why, like you've done in this program, express why this would be something important?
Well, of course, we cannot explain that in a slogan, because we've been talking about it for a few minutes. You need to think about it. But we have 3 years to make sure that we spread that message. We're going to have proposals that are going to be adopted by our members. We're having a convention in Lévis in 10 days. And these are the kind of proposals that are bring forward by the political committee. And I'm sure that we have 3 years to explain that, because I didn't like the last campaign where Mr. Legault used the immigration issue, as you know, to wedge. I think this is not a wedging issue. Actually, it's something to unite us. And that's exactly what we need to do in terms of immigration. The same thing is true about language. With what happened, I totally disagree, and we talked about it a few weeks ago when we see what's going on with universities, and there's been new developments, and I was very impressed by what the universities brought forward, the fact that they're willing to increase the percentage of students who will speak French or learn French. It's a constructive way of uniting people instead of discriminating. And it's exactly the kind of approach that we're having as well for the test. I think that we have to think outside of the box. The old debate of polarizing between the English and French, I think it's over. We need to move forward. And now we have an example that there's the other day I spoke to a friend last week, and he said, I'm nostalgic of the days that we were protesting on St. Lawrence Street with the Anglos on one side and the French on the other side, when I see at we protesting in Montreal. And he's right, that debate was kind of soft compared to what we're having right now. And we have to make sure that those individuals do not take part of the future of Quebec.
Certainly the 90s version of that debate was a far nicer version than previous ones. Let me ask you this about your convention, your party convention. And we've talked about this every time you come on the show. I make a plea, right? Because I say to you, if you want to win seats, you need to go more towards the center. You need to sort of say to the extremes that happen in all political parties to go away, get closer towards the center. And also for Anglophones, I know you've been courting Anglophones. So at your convention, how many Anglos are going to be there? Like, what percentage of your party right now is Anglophone, and how do you go towards the center?
I don't ask people if they define themselves Anglophones or Francophones. In Quebec, many of us are bilingual. We're beyond that. So I don't think we should have a quota on Anglos or Francos in the party. That's not my approach at all. Regarding the center or the left or the right, right now, what I can tell you is that our main concern is the economic crisis. As you know, there was even a mise à jour économique, the economic, I don't know how you call it in English.
Yeah, the economic update from Éric Girard.
Budget, that happened this week. We're seeing that we're close to a recession. People are suffering economically. We need to find solutions to make sure they have more money in their pockets, and that should be our concern to everybody. And that's not left or right. It's making sure people, have food on the table for their kids. And that's what we're going to be focused on. The strong majority of our proposal are to try to give a break to the middle class, to make sure they stay middle class, they don't get poorer.
Éric, thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
Merci beaucoup, Elias. Bye now.
À la prochaine. That's Éric Duhaime. He's the Quebec Conservative Party leader.